Welcome, welcome. What's up, Bobby? Shake and bake, Ricky Bobby. What's up, everybody? We're gonna wait till give it like a minute or two more till everyone starts joining. And it's pretty early. Can anyone just put something in the chat or just confirm with me that you guys can hear me? Awesome, thank you. What's up, Scotty? Yeah, Scott, you have your camera on in case you don't know. There we go. I got you. Bobby, he was just getting his camera ready. Nothing wrong with that. That happened to me once too, man. But I was at work, so that made it even worse. Yeah. Hey, Rena. It's been a while. Let me make you co-host. Oh man. Yeah. I'm actually gonna have to do that too, Scotty, but with my bathroom. It's like the shower is like leaking or it's like dripping. So I probably have to adjust the handle where everything comes out of. Alrighty, guys, we'll get started. This should be a fairly quickly. And Reno, I think you're probably gonna be a great testament to I think these original lectures, right? We used to do these a lot back in the day. I think Toasty has done a fantastic job with a lot of the beginner lectures. I think what's crazy and what a lot of people don't know is that Toasty actually used to come to my lectures originally back in the day when we started. So, everyone builds upon each other. Now I go to his lectures. We all attend different lectures, right? So it never hurts to attend lectures, especially when it comes to stuff of basics. I think basics ultimately when it comes to trading is that people try to overcomplicate. They learn the new shiny thing. They learn about EMAs, they learn about VWAP, they learn about B bands, they learn about so many things, right? But they forget the basics. If you look at what if you do what Flips does, he does an amazing job with scalping. If you do what Nando does, if you look at what all of our amazing analysts do, they ultimately all do the same thing, just in their own style. And you have to remember their basics and what I always call like the holy grails of trading ultimately comes from support and resistance and trend lines, right? Doesn't matter how many fancy algorithms you might have, what indicators you might have on your screen. None of that matters unless you guys can get your support and resistance down, which is what we're going to start on today. And then we're going to transition that into trends and channels, which I think is like the perfect segue, right? And I'm going to mix that all, put that all together. This shouldn't be more than 30, 35 minutes of a lecture, guys. So we'll let you guys get your afternoons. But when it comes to actually drawing support and resistance for me, guys, what I really like to do is I start on the daily time frame. You can do this on any type of time frame, right? You can do this on the weekly, you can do this on the monthly. Heck, you can do this on the 5 minute. You'll find support and resistance levels on 5 minutes. You'll find support and resistance levels on 15, 30, 45 hour, 4 hour. That doesn't matter, right? Like what matters though is when people look at charts, think of charts like information, right? This is a graph, this is a time point, this is data points that we're looking at, right? So the longer the time frame, the more information you have, the more validity it has, the stronger the support and the resistance are. That's why if you actually look at a lot of Toasty's charts recently, he'll actually have weekly pivot points. If you look at Tilio, if you guys read Tilio's newsletter, which I highly recommend that you guys do because there's a lot of knowledge in there, he looks at monthly pivot points. He'll look at weekly pivot points, right? I know Flips does this too because I attend all of their stuff and I see how they're trading. So I'm a big fan of going to daily. I'll occasionally go to weekly as well. Once in a while, I'll go into monthly, but daily is usually my bread and butter, especially for longer term trading. Does this mean that you can apply this to shorter term trading? Like, of course you can, right? You can take a daily, you'd be surprised how many times you'll have a support on a daily and then transition that to the 5 minute and it respects it, just as well, right? So I always say look at things on a broader basis. Try to, start off on the daily. And I know Tilio trades like this too, because he taught me start off on the daily and then start scaling down. I think with a lot of people, what they'll end up doing is they start on the 5 minute and they go up and they have that completely reversed, right? Obviously, this is very contingent on the style of trading that you guys do. So if you're a scalper, of course, the shorter time frames are going to be better for you guys. But at the same time, there's tons of times where you can grab a daily support and resistance and then jump into the 5 minute, jump into the 15 minute and realize that it's still it's still good there, right? So just keep that in mind as we continue. But in this case, I decided to UKO. I think a lot of us are in the trade with Mando at the moment. And when it comes to actually drawing our support and resistance, what I'm really looking for, and it's funny, right? I was actually really thinking about this the other day. When I originally taught this, I was only a fan of bodies, right? So if we're looking at bodies, right, the body of a candle itself, which is like right here, this is what we call bodies. I was a fan of like bodies only. I wasn't a fan of drawing my supports or resistance at wicks. But as I've continued trading, as I've experienced more trading, you'll realize that wicks are, the highs and lows of candles, the highs and lows of the days, the extremes, right? So sometimes you'll actually have stronger rebounds or you'll have stronger resistance and support based on wicks. So don't feel afraid of including wicks, or even sometimes instead of drawing your support at the body, in this case, go ahead and pull that back a little bit more. Boom. Do you see that? So like, and again, very basic, right? What I'm always looking for usually is two bodies. In this case, we have a body here, and a body here. But if we actually pull that down a little bit more and we grab wicks, we're grabbing, and look, it just gets more touches. The more touches that you guys have on the actual support or resistance line, the better. And if you notice, that support line that we have right here is actually a resistance line that KO was respecting for a very long time, right? So we have some consolidation here, we have some consolidation here, and look at it gets retested. And obviously we're above that. This is the 58.64 level. What I'll end up doing for resistance sake, and again, we're going to get into trends and channels in a second. But you have to understand support and resistance before we can even get into trends and channels. But in this case, this is, again, my resistance probably would be right here, which is like the 61 level, if I'm correct. You can even probably go lower and boom, I know the 60 level has been fairly strong, right? So I'm going to put that there. You could do it a little bit higher, but if you notice from a resistance standpoint, it breached resistance, tested it, used it as support, but couldn't hold it and then came back down. And this is where volume comes in handy. I think I could probably do a whole lecture on volume. I know Toasty has done a couple of them as well. But if you realize, as we were breaching this resistance, we had an increase in volume to justify the breach over the resistance, right? But as we maintain that consolidation, if you start paying attention, volume starts dying. And as soon as we broke back into it, volume started increasing, almost justifying why that happened, right? I think a lot of people get obsessed with their lines and the trend lanes and stuff like that, but they're not paying attention to the volume bars. And the volume bars is literally telling you what is happening on in that day. Is there justification for the movement that we are seeing? Is there an increase in volume as we're seeing an increase inside the bars? In this case, yes, we are. We're seeing an increase in volume, right? but we're going to see this constant test between these levels, and this leads perfectly um, into channels. But I'm going to prove my own point. If we go to the 5 minute, right? This is a little bit bigger. We could probably find a better one. But if you notice, look at, again, KO, this is 5 minute chart. We're still maintaining within those support lines. Nothing has changed. Now, even if you go to the 15, doesn't matter. Boom, it's still within that, right? And this is where you can start drawing those extra lines. We're not going to go to 3 minute. You can get more precise as we start going in, because you're just going to start seeing more information. So we do this, you're going to start seeing more and more patterns start emerging. And it's going to become easier and easier for you as you guys start charting more and more often, right? I'm just doing these fairly quickly just so that you guys can see them. Again, just try to get as many points as you can as possible. And you're going to see this across the board. And then if you take these and then you apply them back to the 1 day, what you're going to see is that they're not too off from pivot points that you've actually seen within, right? So we're seeing these pivot points and you see them right here. Look at that. Even though we were on the 5 minute, we took it to the daily, you're still going to see these consolidations within these range points, right? So use these points, again, if you're a scalper and you know that the 58.64 level is pretty strong, then take that level, take it to the 5 minute, and then pay attention the next time KO gets really close, or whatever stock that you want to trade gets really, really close to that level, right? So in this case, obviously it was a while ago, but if we knew, that's a great pivot point, right? That's all a lot of traders are doing is and I think Flips does this really well. Flips is very good at buying calls at the bottom, buying calls when they're coming down to a support level. And then what he does is he just looks at his R and R. Obviously, he's looking at flow, he's looking at a bunch of other things, but he's really just looking at levels. And look how close it got to actually touching this, right? So it's like, okay, what's my risk to reward here? My risk to reward is if I break 58.64, how much further down am I willing to hold my contract, right? How much loss am I potentially taking? Okay, let's say it's very rare that KO breaks 58.64. Volume is looking like it's going to be increasing, and we're going to see a pivot here. Okay, so I want to take a call right around here. You get filled, yeah, you get pulled back, but you continue to go up. And this pivoted from the 58.64 all the way up to 59.39 in actually about 1 day, right? So even if you got this opened at, let's see, what did we open at on the 25th? We opened up here, we got down, and then we pivoted all the way up to 59.26. And that was in 1 day. And this is just KO. I'm just using KO as an example, right? This can be applied. Like, Mario, can you prove to me that this applies to other stocks? Of course it applies to other stocks. Let me clear this just so that you guys are like, no, he's full of shit. And again, you can do this across the board for any stocks. Right now, Apple's in a bit of a funk, but it's long enough to where Apple actually starting to have these levels, these strong levels. Then we can even get into psychological levels of like the 170s, the 180s. Why are even numbers more popular with support and resistance levels? Like there's a reason why we've been holding the 170, and then why we're having issues on the 180s. Where are you? Like one of the tricks I like to use, and I really truly believe that charting sometimes is a psychological thing. Whenever you guys are flipping through the volume on your TV, I hate having mine on like 83. I'd rather have it at like 84. And even at 84, sometimes I'd rather have it at 85. If something so simple as that bothers you, imagine from a technical standpoint of a stock value, right? Those are real things that are happening. Again, we see this perfect flow that Apple is trying to recover the 170. We're getting close to 180, gets rejected, brings you back down to the 170. So we've been holding the 170 for a while now, right? This has been a strong level of support. And if you look how far back, you don't even have to go too far back. This was back in October. Look how we respected the 170. We rebounded off of it, pulled back, broke. We ended up breaking, but ended up coming back. And look at that again. It's just it literally touches it like a T, right? How much further back do you have to go? Boom. This is back in May. Look how close we're getting to that 170 level. But then even if you look at that prior, it's using it as a resistance, rejected, brought back up, right? So this goes as far back. I usually go as far back as a year, maybe even a year and a half. I think any information past a year and a half can become too redundant. Many things can happen. Ultimately, I will like to caveat none of this matters if news comes out, whether it's FOMC, PPI, CPI, war, new presidency. We're entering a presidential election at the moment, right? Understand there are other factors that come into play when it comes to actual charting and trading. So keep that in mind as you do this because you're going to be like, Mario, it didn't work. Biden got shot. You're like, no shit. Like that's a completely, if the president dies, the stock market gets affected, right? So, keep that in mind. It's not so black and white all the time that there are other factors that come into consideration. Now, these are two charts. Oh, let's go to the 5 minute, right? We were like, hey, can we trade this on a short time frame just to prove to you guys that this works? Look at that. This was today, right? This was today. You could have traded Apple today. You're like, okay, I want to make sure Apple is holding the 170. We have proof. We have consolidation. We get a decrease in volume, and then we get an increase in volume throughout the day to get the validation that we should be a little bit higher. But even these moves, right? If you wanted to be on the scalper levels, we're like, okay, we're gonna play the 170 level, and then boom, just comes back up, right? To 174. A 74-cent move in a day for a scalper is money. Even for a long-term swing, for like, hey, I want to get that 174 level. We break down to 169.44, but we're holding a contract. Maybe we got some time on it. Ends up closing at 171.93, which is insane to me, right? That's almost a $2 move in a single day. This is how you can do this. This is how you can do this not only on the short term perspective, but also on the long term perspective as well, right? But let's go back to KO because I think it is a beautiful example of what I'm going to call a channel. Now, to me, what I call a channel is when you see a stock consolidating between two levels. And if in this case, KO has been consolidating from the 58, we go all the way up to the 60s, come back down 58, we go to 61, we come back down to 58, we go back up to 61, we come back down to 58, we go back up to 61, right? And we just did it again. We literally did it the other day. And I know because I talked to Nando a lot, I was personally, that was my PT. My PT was 61. I know he wanted more and KO can give us more room. But if you follow channels, if you follow at least this specific example, we can almost, I don't want to guarantee it, but we can expect potentially that KO can come back down a little bit more, right? Just because of the way this trading has come in. And this is where I want you guys to start taking your own trades or taking your own perspectives when people are waiting. I think a perfect example is JD. If you look at JD moved $1 in a single, or it's like 2 days, it moved $1. And then people are like, we're trimming here. We're going to move. It's like, dude, it moved $1. 26 was a really, really strong support. In fact, let's pull it up, right? We were down here, like around this level. Why wouldn't you want to take profits around down this level for a stock and it just for it to rebound right away, right? I want you guys to get to the point where you guys, even though you're following a trade, even though you're following people, to start trusting and developing the skill to start taking trades on your own, to start taking profits on your own without having to wait for other people, right? So this is what you're going to see in channels. Let's see who else. We can find channels everywhere. Let's see. Google has a channel kind of forming right now. So if you remove drawings, and again, it starts with support and resistance, but you kind of see it here. It's almost it becomes pretty obvious. Once you start practicing these, it becomes really obvious. And you're going to be like, why haven't I been using these more often? Just again, simple stuff, very, very easy, very straightforward, not sexy at all. And this is the stuff, unfortunately, that like people don't like to use because it's not cool. It doesn't have a bunch of colors your on your charts, right? So like again, Google's aiming for that level that we've previously known. Do we have validation from volume that we can actually sustain this? If we don't have enough volume to sustain this, and we're at a point where, hey, we know this is a known resistance, can we expect Google at least to come back down to the 140 level? Obviously, Google recently popped off news that Apple was going to use their AI features within their phones. Who knows if that's actually going to happen or not? But again, one, we have a gap. We're at a heavy resistance. Does this mean, hey, Mark, let's go buy puts tomorrow? No, right? This doesn't mean, but this means keep this on watch. This is when you see analysts going and charting. This is the stuff we're starting to look for. This is the beginning of the picture. This is where they start looking into plays, and then they're like, okay, let's look into a shorter time frame. How is it looking on a shorter time frame? Is it respecting these levels? Wow, would you look at that? It is respecting those levels. It's respecting those levels to a T, right? So this is the stuff that I want you guys to start paying attention to as you guys are trading, as you guys are plotting. And I think this is more when it comes to actually like plotting your trades for the rest of the day. I like to do these on Sundays and preparing for the rest of the week. Um, is there a stock maybe you guys would like me to prove that, hey, this is works, right? This maybe Tesla, because I know a lot of you guys are looking at Tesla. And then while I do Tesla, maybe if there's another stock that you guys are interested in doing, right? Tesla, for being super, super volatile, sometimes for the most volatile stocks, don't always have these specific levels. But I know for Tesla, it does though, because we've looked at this before. Because Tesla's been ranging, and if you want, this is the 205 level, but you can even go smaller than that. And I know it's been ranging from like 165, 163 up to 175, maybe even lower, probably like around here. Yeah, I like that. Right. So it's starting to form this thing right here. Let me get that a little higher. Yeah, right there. So if you notice, it's starting to form. So we touched today. Are we going to come back tomorrow? Are we going to break above this, right? That is the beauty of trading. This is where you start implementing other things. This is where you start implementing candles. This is where you start implementing volume. This is where you start implementing just different things that you can start doing as a trader overall to see. It's like, hey, are we going the way I think we want to go? Right? So I wouldn't be surprised tomorrow if we open up, we gap up just for us to come back down for the rest of the day, right? Um, Again, you can do this across almost every single stock that you can think of, as long as they're forming that support and resistance levels, and if they've been consistent with their consolidations. I think I think here's a good example. AMD has been kind of crazy when it comes to news, but if you notice, even if we remove all the drawings, we start all over, there's still support levels that AMD respects. End of the day. Now we're going to be entering this. So as a trader, obviously today, news, right? News, I think this is the perfect example where news messed up a stock where the US says they will no longer be accepting chips from China, right? So we can expect AMD to potentially come down to the 165, 166 level. And I think that would be a great area to see for a potential bounce, especially on a shorter time frame. You can get a quick scalp and get that bounce. But if you noticed, even on the lower time frames, it's holding these levels. Look at that. Touches, bounces, touches, touches. So tomorrow, we either going to get the breakdown to justify our validity and for it to come back down to the 165 levels, or it maintains the 178, 179 level, and then we continue back up, right? So this is where you guys start paying attention to these little things. Look at that. Even channels exist within shorter time frames, right? We broke the channel, came back down, came back up, re-entered the channel, broke back up, tested channel, went back up. And you can just trade these up and down, up and down, up and down. Some stocks more than others, less volatility, easier for the channels to be seen. The more volatility, the less the channels are going to be seen, right? But those, again, it's just a continuation of support and resistance. But I really, really love trading channels. It's been a way for me to make money in the past, and it continues to make me money into the future, right? So I'm gonna stop right there. Um, Roku has been trading for 61.60. Yeah, Rena, I think you were trading that. I think you were also trading DAL, right? So if we look at Roku, let's use Roku for an example. Oh, yeah, this is just heavy consolidation, right? Look at this. This is the beauty right here. Even if you take that bottom level, and you can do this on any platform, doesn't matter if it's Webull, doesn't matter if it's TOS, it's all the same stuff, right? But kind of as Reno is saying, like we're doing this 65 level and we're kind of touching it, coming back down. Right now, it's just been really holding these levels. You might get other levels in between as well. Where are we? Right there. Right. So we're holding this from the 63 to 65. And if we take this on a smaller time frame, Rena, I'm assuming you're day trading these. Yeah, look, breaks down, breaks back up, even in the past. Look at that. Look at this. It's just beautiful to see it when you just, right? It's just easy. And again, conjunction with your EMAs, in conjunction with the volume, in conjunction with the candles that you've been learning, right? In conjunction with the patterns you've been learning. This is where you start implementing these things, right? But again, support and resistance, longer time frames, the stronger they are, the shorter time frames, not as strong, but still viable. So you can use this across the plethora of stocks that exists in the world, right? This is channels. I hope that makes sense. We're going to get into trends, and we'll go back into KO for that example. Any questions on channels before we start talking about trends? No? Okay. Now trends. Trends. Trends are your friends. Don't fight the trend. These are words that you guys are going to be hearing all the time. Personally, as much as I love support and resistance, I have come to know, and I think River is probably the epitome of it, where he like just talks about trends all the time, trends all the time. Flips talks about this all the time. Don't fight the bull trend. Don't fight the uptrend. I see a lot of people that try to and this happens a lot, and you're probably gonna be like, oh fuck, he's talking about me. Have you ever noticed when a stock is like at an all-time high? I think Google is a perfect example, right? We'll use Google, even though we have a resistance here. Most people are like, Google can't go higher. Google can't break past that 150 level, that 152 level. We have to buy puts around here. And then it just keeps on going higher. And you're like, how is that possible? Why did that happen? And a lot of the times, the justification is a trend. The trend was that the stock was continuing to go up. Or we also have downtrends, which we're going to be talking about in a second. Now, when it comes to drawing uptrends and downtrends, doesn't matter. I think, oh, Amazon's in a perfect trend right now. So when I come to drawing trends, I like finding the lowest part of a trend line, and I'm looking for, in my case, at least 3 points. It's not 100%. We'll probably end up having to grab this guy down here then. And what you'll notice is You do this and you do this, and you try to, when you do the top, I always try to cover most of the trading action. Like sometimes stuff is, you're going to have outliers. You're always going to have outliers. But look at that, right? I think this is a beautiful definition of how trend lines should be drawn. And this applies both for uptrends and for downtrends as well, right? Trying to capture the most trading action as possible on the top and look at how it gets respected. And this is on a daily, right? But look at the bottom as well. It's just been holding that. So then we're holding, we get a pump. If we get retested again, we have a good chance of this popping up. Let's look at this on a 5 minute. Does this work on a shorter time frame? Of course it does. Look at that. I know we're really, really zoomed out, but these are lines that I drew on a daily. Why is it applying to a 5 minute trend line? Because that shit all is correlated. All that shit matters. You can draw a more redefined one in 5 minute, but again, it won't be as strong as the daily. But look at that. More proof, more proof, more proof. All of this is just proof that the shit works and it's easy and that trading is easy. But we always like to overcomplicate shit for no reason. We always like to give ourselves reasons why our trades aren't working when you can just stick to this and more than likely your trades are going to be fine. Again, it's unfortunate I haven't had as much time to be in trade floor. Please reach out to support. Please reach out to, I think Started 1K and Rev have been doing a fantastic job in the small portfolio. If you guys are having issues, please reach out to them. Reach out to River, Toasty, any of these guys, Rena, who's in our class right now. Tori, they've all started where we started. They all started with this. They all started with the basics, right? This is all very basic charting, very simplistic charting. Here's another one. And I pull up DAL because I know that Rena, was it you that traded this today or was it Tori that traded it? I don't remember. But airlines have been in an uptrend recently, right? Airlines is a cyclical stock. But look, so even if we duplicate this, why isn't it letting me duplicate it? There, it's clone. 1K traded it? Okay. Look at that, right? It's just so, I don't know. I get like excited when I see trade, like when it just works out perfectly and it's just beautiful. And look, touches that top trend and then boom, just rejects back down. But look where it touched. I drew these levels by the way a while ago, these support levels. Look where it touched. I didn't predict that. I didn't say, hey, we're gonna just for testing sake, I'm gonna pre-draw a 45.56. This was a support line or a resistance line that I drew a while ago. And look, it respected that to a T. No pun intended, right? And this is the beauty. I think that's always like some of my favorite things. Like if you take a step back from trading, you got to do personal shit in your life and you come back, you realize that like levels from a year ago are still applying to the stock today. There's a reason for it. There's a reason why. Now let's take this to the 5 minute. Look, we're hovering, we're consolidating around this level of that top level. We touch it, we damn near, and this is on a daily, right? We can get closer and then boom, just drops. How do we justify that drop? Increase in volume, right? We have an increase in volume to justify the drop. Same thing. Oh, we're pivoting off of a support level that I've drawn. Okay, is there a justification for it? Yes, we're seeing an increase in volume to justify that, right? So this is how you use it when you guys are trading on a daily basis. You traded UAL today. Okay, let's take a look at UAL. Again, UAL, same thing. This is on a 5 minute, right? If you take a trend line from a 5 minute, it won't apply as much to a daily, and I'll show you guys why. Because the scaling doesn't work 100%. Because you're looking at big chunks of time. But you could also use it on a short term because if you bring this to a daily, it's going to look like a random stick in like the grand scheme of things, right? Look, it doesn't work out. And that's why I always say start big, then go small. redefine in the small sections, but start big. Because on a small perspective, we're going on a 5 minute. You're like, oh shit, United is bearish, right? You might be thinking, oh fuck, like this looks bearish maybe at the moment, but then you're like, okay, let's zoom out. And I think a lot of people don't zoom out enough, and they get stuck on the short term shit, and they don't realize that, oh fuck, UAL is still in a fucking you know uptrend. Even if we just did it here, UAL is still respecting that uptrend. This will be interesting to me. Let's remove this and remove this. Ah, mm. When this comes to test this, that's going to be interesting, right? Are we going to come back down to 43? This will be a very interesting point of view that we're going to just like, okay, is the trend line still going to hold? Is that a potential place for UAL to bounce? Is that a potential place for us to catch? Obviously, I feel like airlines are very news susceptible. BA, for example, obviously that's not an airline company, but it's very susceptible to news. With one crash, all of this charting can mean shit, right? It can mean nothing. So keep that in mind. But look, this was a downtrend. Same thing. Instead of starting at the bottom, we're always looking at the bottom and trying to get the top. With the downtrend, you start at the top and you try to get the bottom and then again capture the bottom points of it. And then I was like, well, when does a trend line become invalidated? When it breaks and then it closes and then a new candle forms at the bottom. That is when that trend becomes invalidated. But if you look, even if it's invalidation, the reason why I don't like deleting old trend lines is because they will then be used as either a support or resistance down the line. We started forming a new, uptrend here. But if you notice, like we struggled at this old trend line for a bit. Obviously, we ended up gapping up, having volume as confirmation that we're back in this uptrend. We tested again. Look at that. This was a while ago, right? This has been okay. We broke and we retested again on that same fucking trend on the 19th of October. This is November, almost a month later, and we're still testing that trend line all the way here. Is it bullshit? You tell me. Is this real? You tell me, right? So it's like and this is why I get so flustered sometimes. And I think this is why all of us as support sometimes we get flustered. It's like trading doesn't have to be hard. I think River talks about this all the time. He's like, don't overcomplicate trading. Just don't, please. I promise you. If you guys stick to the basics, yes, and then you add your EMAs, and then you add your B bands, and then you add your VWAP. Trading will just get a lot easier, I promise. But then you have people who are like, I want to learn about flow and I want to learn about level twos, but don't know how to draw the support and resistance. It doesn't mean shit. If you see level twos or even flow up here, what does that mean to you? You have no idea what that means because you have no idea where it is on the chart if you're not drawing these particular things. That's why actually charting, actually practicing, getting in the weeds of things matters and why it's so important. It's why coming back to the basics every once in a while is so crucial as well. Even for myself, even when I do these lectures, I'm like, oh fuck, that's right. This is work. This is real. Right. So just keep that in mind as you guys are going through your trades. Keep that in mind as you guys are practicing your charting. That this is all here. This is all very basic information that you guys have available. We have tons and tons of videos on these. You guys can reach out directly to us. I used to do this thing called homework where people, if you want to practice, if you're like, hey, I'm feeling nervous, go pick a stock, chart it out, and send it to me. Send it to a support member. Have them look it over and have them review it for you guys. We're more than open to do that for you guys because we're here to teach you guys because we were once in your seat as well. We were once, or we didn't know anything, or we were struggling with certain trades, and we went back to the basics, and that's when we started making money again, right? So that's really it for me, guys. I like to make my lectures a little bit shorter than normal. If there's any last minute stocks you guys want me to look at, I'll be more than happy to quickly chart them for you. If not, we're free to go and I'll give you guys back 20 minutes. Nothing? Any last minute charts? Anyone wants anything? Would you? Okay, Matt, that's a very interesting one. So obviously very hyped fucking stock, right? Like very um this is the one that Nvidia has investments in, right? Oh, SPY? Oh, I thought you meant Sohound because everyone wants this fucking stock for some reason. SPY, same thing. SPY's been in an uptrend, baby. This is here. You know what's really funny? Okay, so long here, I'll do a quick rant. So a family member recently came to me probably like 2, 3 months ago when SPY was at like 500. Um, and they're like, oh no, it wasn't even at 500. I don't think it hit 500 yet. And they're like, oh, should what can I invest in? And I was like, oh, I don't know. The market's all-time highs. Don't think you can go higher than that. And then SPY just casually hits 523, right? So it's like, trust me, guys, where you think the top is, that's not the top. The stock can keep on going. Who are you to say that that's where the market validates that, right? So again, you can take this. I mean, we can start all the way down here if we really wanted to, but I'm really liking this. Boom. And it gets easier as you do it, guys. I've been charting for years, so it's like second nature. The more you do it, the better. And it's also one of those things where if you lay off of it, if you stop practicing like a sport, like anything else, piano, music, any etc., you will not become as good. Let's get a little bit closer. We didn't touch it 100%. You could even be like, well, I want it there because it touches more points. If that makes you feel better, good. I like doing those extremes. We could potentially see down here. Not saying that we will, but we can, and then we can see. And this, the beauty, I know Toasty does this a lot. If you go on a weekly time frame, look at that. Still works. Look, right? That's the beauty of trends. This is on a weekly basis. That was on a daily basis. I think if we go on a monthly basis, I don't know if it'll still work. Kinda, a little bit. We're still maintaining within that trend line, right? So this is the beauty of trends. This is why I always joke around that trends are more powerful than support and resistance. So it's just a support and resistance or a channel, but crooked or at an angle. That's how you guys should be looking at this, right? You make it look, bro, it is simple. Rudy, it's simple. I promise you. Like, I promise you, this shit is simple. You know what I always say? People overcomplicate shit so they can sell you stuff that you don't need, right? Think about like all the fucking courses and like seminars and all this stuff that people do, and they overcomplicate it and they use really big words that you don't need. Obviously, can it get more complicated than this? Yes. If you brought in another analyst, are they going to give you a different perspective? Yes. But it comes down to the basics like this. Don't overcomplicate shit. I promise you. Look at the way they trade. Look at like when Flips does his screen shares, look at his trading style. When you come and you look at patterns tomorrow, if you guys follow his shit, every time I talk about it, he ends up doing it. Look at how he does his patterns. He does trend lines. He does support and resistance. His trading isn't complicated. He's just figured out what works for him. Same thing for Fernando. He's figured out what works for him, for Zaves, for all these guys. They're doing this. I promise you. I promise you they're doing this. They're not doing anything else that's super special. They've just stuck to it. And the odds are there for them. Is this 100%? No, it's not 100%. Because look, it breaks. It's not 100%, right? And it's gonna happen when this shit breaks here and it might go down. It's gonna happen. But the odds are that it's probably gonna be in your favor if you continue to follow the trend, right? When you're in these no man lands, it becomes a little bit harder. Yeah, you could do it on like the 5 minute and stuff like that. Um, it's gonna be a little bit rougher, but look, it's almost there. Look at that, right? Obviously, these are like multiple days of it, but you can use that as a baseline to get to what you need to see. It just it's a little bit, you start putting it's a pie, right? Think about it as a pie. You're like support and resistance, that's one piece. Trends and channels, that's another piece. You're like, all right, fuck it. Now I'm gonna add VWAP and 9 EMA. Boom, you get another slice of the pie. Oh shit, volume. That's the fourth slice of the pie, right? You're like, okay, now I have volume, VWAP, EMA, trend lines, support lines. Oh, now I'm learning about candles. Oh, now I'm learning about how certain candles are caused by different selling patterns. Okay, boom, that's another slice of the pie. All right, now I'm learning about patterns. Boom, that's another like that's how you guys should be looking at this. It's not that, you need it all at once or anything like that. It's also it's like if it doesn't work for you, don't do it. I tried V bands. I don't like them. Doesn't mean that it doesn't work. No, like Telio loves V bands. River likes V bands. There's a couple of guys that trade with V bands. I just don't like them. There's a couple of guys that swear by certain stuff. Toasty put me onto the 200 EMA, right? I love using it now, especially on my longer term trades. It's a little bit harder to see it on the Oh, I have it turned off. No, it's right here. 200, right? I love it. It's such a good tool, a good arsenal to have. In fact, before Google bounced, B5, who I don't think is in this, you can literally go and literally search up B5. And like myself, we were talking about Google back when it was in the 130s, and I told them it's like Google's gonna go down to 130. I didn't take the trade because I was too scared, but it bounced hard off that 200 that other day, right? So like use these little tools that you guys are having to your benefit, but it starts with the basics, I promise you. Where is shop? Someone said shop. Shop, I'm not too happy about because me and Toasty took an L the other day on shop just for it to recover. But if you look at shop, and this will be the last one unless there's like one more thing that someone wants to do. Uh, Sometimes it's not clear, like it's not 100% there, and I think that's okay. Like it's not always gonna be there. If there isn't a support and resistance, then don't trade it, right? If it doesn't fall into your qualifications of how you want to trade, don't trade it. Don't force a trade. It's another big issue. And over trading, you guys like over trade a fuck ton. I see it all the time. You guys are always over trading. See, like we broke the support, but we brought back up. So now we're back. So whoever your name is, I think that's literally your name. A. Yeah. So we broke back, we tested resistance, right? So let's pay attention to, are we going to continue with this resistance, or are we going to go back down to 74 or 75 in this case? Or are we going to have enough volume to pop back up and control that 79, 80 level to go back up, right? So that's kind of like in the section that you're in right now. And that's what I would be paying attention to. When it comes to trend lines, if you notice, look at that. It's pretty obvious. So we have a trend line going. It's starting to form. Where are you? Boom. So look at that, right? Barely breached that trend line. And maybe this is why we're having issues here. You can even pop it up a little bit more if you want. I think that right there might be a little bit better because that covers most of the trading action, and then we get those two extremes, right? If we break above that trend line, then you can expect more higher. But since we tested the trend line, I wouldn't be surprised if we might come back down and test right here or break all the way down and test right here. But yeah, I think that's it for me, guys. Have a great day. Again, go practice. Feel free to reach out to us, right? Don't feel afraid. And we're always here to help, guys. So thank you for everyone for stopping by, and I hope you guys have a great day.